Hey y'all, hey, it's JJ Conway, and I don't know what I did, but I somehow lost my co-host, Camille Thomas. And so I'm expecting that she'll be back on pretty soon. It's probably my fault, I did have a career in tech, but sometimes things just don't go the way they're supposed to go. But hopefully she'll be back on soon. The reason I went ahead and started is because Facebook is pretty strict about if you set the broadcast, you got 9 minutes to get on. It's like driving down I-95 in DC. They installed those traffic cameras, and the cop said, we'll give you 10 over before the cameras flash. So 9, you're fine. 10, you're mine. And so that's how Facebook is with this streaming. They want you to stream. Hey, Camille, how you doing today? Y'all
I'm
should
good.
be here. Her not being here at the start is not her fault.
Kicked me right out. Said we were
Oh, it
going to
did.
start. Kicked me right out. So, but I'm here and I'm happy to be here. So,
Oh, I'm excited that you are here. This is going to be a fantastic lesson. And, for those of you who've been with us for a bit, you're probably beginning to see how each of these pieces fit together. Like we started with this all-consuming desire, and now we talked about how we have to fortify our belief, in that desire, right? And we do that through faith. We influence our subconscious mind, which for most of us tends to believe we can't do it. We influence that subconscious mind through the principle of autosuggestion. We acquire and organize specialized knowledge, whether it's our knowledge, or somebody else's knowledge. And then we take charge of that imagination, which again, for most of us, when we start, it has devolved into a failure mechanism that's playing these background tapes of doom and gloom, right? We take hold of that and we take charge of it and we turn it into an automatic success mechanism where we really begin to walk in the energy of the desire that we have. And we master procrastination through confident decision. And so today we're going to talk about persistence, which is the sustained effort necessary to induce the faith that makes all of this happen. And you say, well, persistence is rather late in the chapter. It is rather, in the book, it is rather late in the book, but it's woven throughout all the other concepts that we've covered thus far. And so, Camille, I think one of the reasons many of us don't have faith in our dream or our desire is because we have started and stopped and gotten excited and started again and then given up so many times that our subconscious, our imaginations, every fiber of our body, and the people around us do not believe that we are going to do it this time. What do you think about this concept?
oh, I think I mean, you're spot on. We haven't done it enough. And he talks about, and I said it last week, I believe it was habit. We start something, we don't give it enough time to become a habit in our life. We don't continue to see it through. I hear some people, they like just say dieting, that's one of the easy things. Oh, I'm a diet. You do it for like 3 or 4 days, and then you're like, oh, well, I didn't lose any weight. I just might as well not do it. Well, it takes time. It takes time for those behaviors, for the exercise, for the food choices to become a daily habit to where you start seeing the results of the change that you've made. And I was reading another book and it was talking about how the only way really to replace a habit is to create a new one. So if you want to stop that one, whatever it is that you do, you have to create it, which means it takes time. It takes to doing it over and over and over again. But just like you said, we fall short all the time. We expect miracles to happen, which they can happen, but typically not. We have to put in the work to do these things. Things can change, but we're not willing to go the length. We want to run the sprint instead of the marathon, or we just want to do it for a couple days to make us feel like we've actually done something so that we can have an excuse as to why it didn't work, because we didn't really want to put in the work anyway. So
Oh, yeah.
absolutely, Joey.
Absolutely. And I was listening to, I forget who it was, to be honest with you, but I was listening to someone the other day, a personal growth, part of my personal growth plan is I continue to listen to the experts, right? And one of the things that they said was a lot of times we give a half-hearted effort, And then we make the problem, we make the issue, we make the dream so big that of course we can't do it. And we make it so huge in our mind that of course nobody can accomplish that. And what that does in us is it automatically sets us up for failure and sets us up for that lack of persistence. So when you say a lot of times we just don't put forth the effort, I gotta say, there's a few things in my life that I just can't do because of me, right? Like I am 5'4". I am never going to be a 6'4" model, right? I'm never going to be that. Um, so there's some things I just cannot be, but that doesn't mean I can't be what I can be. And I actually proved that to myself. I used modeling as an example because I did become a model for a little while, and then I realized it was not for me, right? But I took some really good photos, and I got published in some things, and I was like, oh wow, this is so cool. But there's certain things that, just genetic wise or build wise or injury wise, we might feel like, well, I can't ever be fill in the blank. So then I'm not even going to try to be all that I can be. But it really is an affront. I believe this spiritually, I believe it intellectually, I believe it emotionally, that it really is an affront to God to not be all that we can be. And so many of the things that we write ourselves out of, that we could achieve if we would be persistent, fall into that category that we're just making it so big and so impossible. Why bother even trying? Well, I did the best that I could do.
Did you really though? Did you really? And that's the thing, we say we make it so big and stuff. It's just our excuse not to do it. It's our excuse to say, well, I mean, it was so far reaching anyway. I wasn't going to do it, but at least I gave it an effort. Okay. That's what you want to tell yourself. At least you gave it an effort. You may have, but again, you know, the result is a reflection of the effort that you put in. So if you didn't get the result that you wanted, you probably didn't put in a whole lot of effort. And if you did put in effort, here's the other thing. A lot of times we put effort in the wrong place. So it'll be around the thing that we're supposed to be doing, to create this habit of changing things. So I'm just going to change one thing instead of doing the one thing that you're supposed to be doing. So I can say, well, at least I tried. Well, at least you tried. Well, the effort shows that at least you tried.
At least I tried. Well, and that's the thing. Like I thought about it. In fact, I didn't think about teaching this today, but I thought about this in the context of my military career and how a lot of times we really are spending good energy after bad or spending a lot of money after bad. And we're trying so hard to fix it because what we've already invested was just so significant. And I remember it was actually 2 years ago, maybe. Yeah, it was 2.5 years ago. So it was before COVID, well before COVID. And I was teaching a class and I was like, we're so trying to do this and this and get people to see this or that. But if they ever wanted to cast a colonel in a video, they're gonna find a more colonelier colonel than Colonel Conway. And as soon as the words came out of my mouth, I was like, oh wow, I have spent 23, or at that time 21 years trying to prove myself in a career that didn't want me, in an environment that wasn't welcoming to me. And it's not to say that that experience isn't something that I wouldn't choose again, because it made me the person that I am today. But one of the things that I took away from that was when I left military service, and after a very accomplished 23 years, notwithstanding the years colored by the car accident, but when I left military service and I began to walk in what I was really called for and what I was really designed to do, all of a sudden the doors began to open. And whereas my career was always fighting, 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 it seemed like now I was being welcomed in. So whereas before, so sometimes we do have to bust down some things, and that persistence carries through those times. But sometimes we've got to look at things for what they are, and we've got to look for where the flow is. And that negative energy of those last couple of jobs, I would have never been in the flow if I hadn't stepped outside of that and been persistent, yes, but realize what's going on and figure out a different way to accomplish my dream. And so I don't ever want anybody. John Maxwell, you've seen this before. John Maxwell uses this example that, somebody keeps bumping their head against the wall. And we say, oh, they're so persistent. Oh, they're so courageous. Oh, they just never give up. Oh, they're so amazing. And he says, after a while, this keeps happening. You got to stop. You got to stop and figure out why you bumping your head and figure out something else to do. So we want to make sure that we're real clear what we're talking about when we talk about persistence. He says in page 177, I'm going to read this and I'm going to pass it over. I'm going to pass it over to Camille to get her input on this. But it says in line 11, the majority of people are ready to throw their aims and purposes overboard and give up at the first sign of opposition or misfortune. A few carry on despite all opposition until they attain their goal. And then I want you to skip out. These few are the Fords, the Carnegies, Rockefellers, and Edisons. Those are names that don't mean as much today as they did when he read it, but when he wrote it. But you still know those names, right? There may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. The building of a fortune generally involves the application of the entire 13 factors of this philosophy, meaning this whole Think and Grow Rich book. These principles must be understood and they must be applied with persistence by all who accumulate money.
That's good. I had all that highlighted. All of it. It's like that whole persistence. The quality is to the character of man what carbon is to steel. I mean, that's interwoven in the very. I mean, what is steel without carbon? You know what I mean? What is a good character without persistence? And then the other thing is that he says that it involves the application of persistence in all 13 of these principles. Again, they're not going to work if you're not persistent, which means that you have to keep going. You have to keep doing it. We had a challenge where we had to read this chapter on persistence for a couple of weeks, right? Every day for a couple of weeks. Well, in my mind, I said, I'm not going to have to start all over again. So I'm going to go through my 2 weeks and I'm going to do my 14 days straight because I wanted to see the benefit of that. But then what I found was those 2 weeks passed and I was still doing it. And I'm still doing it. And I'm still doing it. And I read my persistence every day because I'm really trying to put these principles at work in action in my life. And then the other thing I want to bring up, JJ, is in line 22, it says, unless you're one of the 2 out of every 100 who already have a definite goal at which you are aiming and a definite plan for its attainment, you may read the instructions and then pass on with your daily routine and never comply with those instructions. So as I was going through this thing, and it says 2 out of 100, 2 out of 100 already have a definite goal. I posted a thing after I read this one day. I posted on Facebook and I said, well, what are your goals for your life? Now on my Facebook, I usually get, a number of engagements. And the ironic thing about this, the funny thing to me was on this particular post, when I asked about, do you have a definite goal for your life? What is that goal? It wasn't 2 out of 100, only 2. Only 2 responded.
Out of what, a couple thousand?
Yeah, I have a couple thousand friends on my Facebook. 2 people. And I was like, So I posted another one and it was responses all over. So I'm like, wasn't that they didn't see it? You put a little thing, but only 2 people responded. And it wasn't that it was a whole goal. It was just like, this is what I want. And the other thing that he said about that was the author's checking you up at this point because lack of persistence is one of the major causes of failure. Moreover, experience with thousands of people has proved that the lack of persistence is a weakness common to the majority of men. It is a weakness which may be overcome by effort. And then it says the ease at which the lack of persistence may be conquered will depend entirely upon the intensity of one's desire. And so I read that and I'm like, all these people we give up too soon. We don't have that persistence, that continuing in the face of defeat, that the Edisons, the Rockefellers, the Carnegies, whoever. We don't have that where at the first sign of defeat, we're like, okay, let me see how I can get over this. We go up, automatic stop sign. And then we wonder why we fail at the things that we attempt I say that loosely, attempt to do, and it can be overcome by the intensity of your desire. How bad do you really want it? How bad do you really want that position? Are you willing to work for it? Are you willing to go through the crap that you know you're going to have to go through with the people that you know you're going to have to go through it to get this position? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to skip that lunch with the coworker because you know that that's not in your budget? What are you willing to sacrifice? It can be if your desire is strong enough. And then that goes back to the willpower and persistence as well. Is your willpower strong enough, which is coupled with desire? They're one and two, strong enough to push you on to keep going despite every obstacle that you face. As we see, there's only 2 people out of 100 typically that know what they want and will do the things to get it. But what are you willing to do to
That's
get
right.
what you want, and how long?
That's
So
right. And it's not even just a financial desire. It's not even just financial independence. I asked somebody the other day, have you thought about what kind of travel you want to do with your family over the next year? And it was a totally foreign concept, and I thought, well, this is somebody who talks about how much they love to travel, but yet you haven't made any ideas or thought about what you might like to do if all the COVID stuff is kind of resolved and you can travel again. Like it seems to me that it's in many areas of our lives that we really, most of us, I don't mean we, me and you, because I like to think that we've got lots to grow, we've got lots of growth to do, but I think we have moved a little bit forward in our lives. But I think about, even just things we don't want, like toxic situations at work. See, there's a difference between putting up with all of the low man on the totem pole, you got to work your way up stuff, than putting up with the toxic situation. But how many people will sit in a toxic situation, will badmouth the boss and all the chain of command, all of the leadership, the middle management, and they'll have something to say behind everybody's back, but they will not take forth the effort to go find themselves another job or induce in themselves the skill set needed to acquire the job they decided they really want. No, it's just easier and familiar and comfortable to say, right here. And I'm challenging you, and Camilla's challenging you today. It is time out for playing in our comfort zone. I'm gonna grab this for you. This is one of my favorite quotes. It says, life begins at the end of your comfort zone. And it's time for a lot of us today to push past the familiar and the comfortable and better the enemy I know than the enemy I don't know. No, it's time to move forward. You've been called to greatness. You've been called to do something with your life. It's time to move forward. And the way that you move forward is by being persistent.
and that's that other thing, persistence too, in the position that you're in. And I'll quickly, there was something that I wanted to do within my own organization that I thought that was going to help some things. And it was in my persistence. And when I say persistence, I mean 2 years worth of persistence. That this is what I want to do. And then when I had to go around and go, do whatever I did to get that. But when it finally happened, it was such an enriching experience that that same person I had been begging for 2 years to just let me try, I want to do this, whatever, came back and was like, how can we get this on the schedule regularly? As did all the other folks who were like, oh, this is another this and this and that. And the sentiment around it after 2 years of being persistent, because there are some jobs like we had that I couldn't just walk away. I can't just get a new job because I'm locked into a contract. So I had to stay there. But how we talked about courage last time, courageous can you be, or will you be, in order to push past those things and be persistent to be the change that you want to see in your organization or in your job or wherever you are. So it takes that too. But I had this desire to help the people in my community, in my job, to show them that what we were experiencing didn't have to be. Their thinking can be changed, their mindset could be changed, And it was against a lot of people that were just like, oh my God, I had to hear it. And I'm like, all I could do was, God, just help me to say the right things, to do the right things, the right activities to make it work. There were more people than I had expected. So how do I do this? And but I was determined to put on the best event that I could, so that when they walked out of that, they wouldn't be like, oh, I told you it would be a waste of my time. I told you it wasn't worth it. I was like, nope, I'm gonna need some guidance, some wisdom, but I know it's gonna happen. And it did. And so sometimes when you can't walk away, what will you do? How persistent will you be in trying to create change or be the change that needs to be, so desperately spread throughout that environment, that culture, that place? So that's another thing to think about as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think about the times where I have taken a stand for, justice and righteousness and way people need to be treated. And I may not have seen it at that duty station, but then when I left, things changed based on the initiatives that I had put in place, or changed based on the complaints that I had filed. It's really bad. Like, I went to one job and I was like, I almost said, the boss was asking me, well, what's been your hallmark at the last couple well, I've gotten a lot of toxic leaders fired. Like, that's just not the way you want to go into your new job, right? But there's one thing that used to really, really frustrate me, and that is I felt like I was doing the same things that everybody else who was achieving my dream. I felt like I was doing the same things they were doing. But what I didn't realize is it wasn't just about the steps and the actions. It's about who we are inside. And so I'd like to draw everyone's attention to line 44. I'm on page 178, and that is fortunes gravitate to men whose minds have been prepared to attract them, just as surely as water gravitates to the ocean. In this book may be found all the stimuli necessary to attune any normal mind to the vibrations which will attract the object of one's desires. And what I've discovered over these years is that it's not about what you do as much as it is about who you are. And of course, if you are a person of character, if you are a person with a strong desire, if you are a person with strong faith, if you are a person who understands how to harness the process of autosuggestion to make your mind the best it can be, if you're the person who understands how to organize specialized knowledge and can make the decisions and will persevere, then you can create in yourself the mind to attract wealth and riches and relationships and everything that you want out of life. And I wish I would have known all of this when I was starting out in the ministry. I wish I would have understood. In fact, I ran from this book when I first was called to the ministry, because I was like, we're not doing any Dianetics and wishful thinking and positive thinking and chanting and mantra. We're not doing none of that stuff up in here. That's how I felt, right? But what I didn't realize is that these are the very same, these are biblical principles. Now, we're teaching a secular class, but each of these principles that he is discussing, you will find them in the Bible. That's why I have a companion class that really digs into the biblical principles of these. But it's one of those things. If you get frustrated, now I'm not asking anybody to jump on the comments and say, yeah, this is me or anything like that. All right. But if you're the kind of person that gets frustrated because you don't understand why this person got promoted instead of you, or you don't understand why that person got the contract instead of you, and you don't understand why you have all this value to bring and they picked this person over here who can't deliver. Now look, I'm not telling you don't bring the goods. Okay. But what I'm saying is, you don't have to be amazing. You can still build wealth and attract abundance if you follow these principles. And instead of getting upset about that person, put these principles to work in your life. And then now you'll have the mindset and the content. You'll have the mindset and the character. You'll have the mindset and be able to deliver value to the people that you are in front of. And that will allow you to attract that wealth even faster. That will allow you to get out of debt faster. It'll allow you to recreate your marriage and your family, relationships, your bonds. It'll allow you to really put yourself in a position to have the flow and freedom of time, space, and money to do all that you were called to do. Oh, I love this
Yes.
stuff.
You can have the mindset and the money. right? Mindset and the money. But I thought I love that you pulled that out, because just in these last couple of pages as I was going through, like you said, if you put these principles in place, and there were one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight different places on 2 pages or 2.5 pages where it references exactly what JJ just said. And I wrote next to it, train your mind. You have the ability to train your mind. It's your mind. We have control over what we focus on, what we allow into our systems, and to an extent, what we accept, the things that we repeat that become our truths, the things that we allow to resonate in our mind and take hold of our heart, and create that burning desire within in our minds and things like that. And it really is about training it. And every time I look at this, he's talking about doing these things that are proven to change your mindset to be money conscious instead of poverty conscious. And he keeps saying it again over and over. Poverty is attracted to one whose mind is favorable to it, as money is attracted to him whose mind has been deliberately prepared to attract it. Deliberate. To get results, you must apply all of the rules until their application becomes a fixed habit with you. And then another one, it says the money consciousness must be created to order unless one is born with such a consciousness. Over and over in this book, he talks about creating, training your mind. And it goes back to that persistence and that habit, which again, I underline here 17 different times. He talks about habit, or says the word habit, in both good and bad references. Because what you do most, you're training your mind to attract that which you focus on. So if you have that poverty mindset, you have that lack, that sense of lack in everything you do, instead of, I'm getting this money. Well, I don't have this. I don't have that. You're training your mind not to even look for it. And attraction is that I'm looking at that which is like what I want. And when we keep saying we don't have, when we keep putting all these things in our mind, we're training our mind to look for the holes, and we keep falling in them.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
So
We keep training our mind to look for the holes, and then we keep falling in them.
that just came, but
Well, I like that because
we're
you,
chipping in.
you came from one of the areas that I highlighted, and that's the difference between this poverty consciousness and this abundance consciousness, which because abundance has kind of been transitioned in our today's world. A lot of times I might use prosperity, and of course, if I'm in a religious environment, well, then I don't want to use prosperity, because prosperity gospel has kind of been corrupted too, right? So I'm like, man, well, Lord, I need a new word. I need a new word. Magnificent consciousness. I don't know. But this abundant thought that there is enough for everyone, some of it belongs to me, and I am fully equipped and resourced to have what I need. And if it runs out, more will be made to supply my need. That is a mindset that cannot exist in concert with a poverty mindset, which feels that there's not enough for everyone and I've got to claw and scrape and get there. So you see the difference in the energy, right? You see the difference in the energy, where one is an abundance and a growth and a positivity. The other one is a negative and a fighting and a scarcity. And oh, there's not fear. It's fear. And what are our habits based on? Our habits based on abundance and expectation of positive growth, or our abundance based on, or our habits based on fear that we're not going to have enough, that we're never going to be enough. It's time for us to move out of fear consciousness and walk in every ounce of the abundance that we've been called to have.
Absolutely. I just keep learning more and more. It's just in my spirit that there is no lack, and the more I see it in my own life, there is no lack. There's always more where that came from. The seeds have seeds, have seeds, have seeds, have seeds, have seeds. Something is always going to be reproducing around the world. They have a few things and a few animals that have gone extinct, but there's not a lack of animals. Maybe a lack of one particular kind, but there's tons of others. We may not have, what do they call the dodo bird anymore or something like that, But we got plenty of seagulls and pigeons everywhere I turn around. We got plenty of them, you know. So they're here in this time to serve the purpose. But I say all of that to say we look for it in one way, and we don't realize that there are so many different ways that we can attract wealth, we can attract abundance, we can attract it. There's no lack of anything. You start making, and that goes back to that excuse. We make excuses. Oh, well, it doesn't look like this, or it wasn't this particular thing, or whatever. But you just skimmed over. They didn't have your particular type of bread, but they got 50 other kinds of bread in there. It's not that there's no bread. Might not have the one that you like, but retrain your taste buds, because we have the power to do that too, you know. So I'm just saying, like, we keep using these as excuses for us not to be persistent in getting what we want. And if you know what that tastes like, I learned how to bake bread. Okay, so learn how to bake your own bread. Create your own avenue or a way to attract wealth or bring wealth into your home, into your family, into your life. You have everything in you to be prosperous, to be able to create, to be able to flourish in wherever you are. But we put our own limitations, and we want to blame everything and everybody else for our shortcomings because we didn't see something through. Oh, I tried that business. How long did you do it? Well, I mean, 3 months. I didn't get a customer. 3 months. Did you really try? Go back to that first statement when we first got on.
Oh, no,
Did
they
you really try?
tried. They tried. They just didn't listen to people like me or you because they didn't want to pay for our classes, and they didn't want to do it the right way. They just wanted to kind of bootstrap it together, and then they got upset that they didn't get anywhere. Well, you can get somewhere on your own if you give yourself enough time. If you want to go fast, you need to bring in some experts and take advantage of that specialized knowledge.
Specialized knowledge and put your
We're gonna
money
do it
where
our
it's
own
going to
way.
work for you.
We're gonna do
Yes.
it our own way, and we are not going to do what all these best practices. We're not going to get us a mastermind of people who've been there, done that, to speak into our lives. Oh, you said a mouthful right there. Oh my goodness. And I think about what you were saying about how we expect it to come one way, and if we don't see our kind of bread, but there's like 50 other kinds, and we won't try them. And I want to encourage you today not to put any limitation on how the wealth and how the abundance comes. And I'm going to give you two quick stories related to this. And when I first moved to Barksdale Air Force Base, so it was 2010. I was first stationed there. My son was 4 years old or 5 years old, and we were 800 something thousand dollars in debt. And everything that was free that could be opened up to a single mom who was learning how to be a single mom after a really messy divorce was just opened up to me. Jumpy Place would have free military night. The Chuck E. Cheese guy would give me free 20 tokens every time I came in. Like all of these different things opened up for me, and it was a blessing when I made that commitment to my future. All these things opened up, and I didn't have to go into debt. I didn't have to do something that was at cross purposes with my dream and my future, which my burning desire back then was I wanted to retire from the Air Force debt free. That was my burning desire. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know how it was going to work out. But you would never have known if you didn't know my story and you just looked at Facebook, you would not have realized how much debt I was in because of the life that I was living, the abundance. But if I had snubbed my nose at the free this here and the free that there, then I may have missed out on a world of opportunity. And the other story that I want to tell that really reinforces Camille's point about not limiting how things come to us, but walking in the ultimate end goal desire and letting things play out the way they will, is that when in 2007, I took my first real estate class with Sherman Ragland, and he taught us about real estate, but he also taught us about how after 9/11, his business, his aviation related business, tanked. And that's how he started real estate. And he walked us through the markets, and he said, look, every 10 to 12 years, something cataclysmic happens that shakes up the economy. You want to put yourself in a position to be able to maximize the next cataclysm. Now, I'm not saying I'm glad for COVID. I wish it hadn't happened this way, right? But I will say that when all of this stuff started happening almost 2 years ago now, 18 months, 19 months ago, when all this stuff started happening and everything started taking, there are people who were positioned. They had trained their minds and they were positioned to maximize the new economy. There were, I know people, the local who, you think, oh, well, you can't beat DoorDash and Waiter and all that. But I know people who said, you know what, those guys are taking 2 hours. I'm local. I got a car and I got a Facebook page. I can zip around and get you your food in 20 minutes. And guess what? Those are the people that stood up new businesses and they made money. Now, whether those businesses sustain or not, I don't know, but they made money when everybody else was broke. Right. And I think about even my business. I had purposed in my heart that I was going to bank some cash. When this is 2007, now this is before the divorce, I was going to bank some cash. And when the next cataclysm came, boy, I was going to snap up all those properties. And I wasn't going to be greedy about it, but I was going to snap up the properties and I was going to work with the homeowners so we could create win-win-win solutions to keep people in their home if possible, or move them with dignity and respect into a smaller home so that they could actually afford it. Right. Like I had this whole plan worked out. This was how I was going to make my fortune. And that's not what happened. When this came, I was in you remember Paul Martinelli's Future Proof? I was in the future proof. I was in the position to see that. He had all these experts lined up for 2 years in a row. He did it over the summer. And I jumped in that first summer of COVID and got connected with all of these people who helped me expand this business. And then the next summer, I got connected with even more people who helped me expand this business. And I really thought that my expansion was going to come through real estate. But you know what? I'm going to take the blessing any way it comes. I'm going to take the wealth any way it comes. I'm going to take those relationships any way it comes. And because I had, like Camille said, I had trained my mind to be open and receptive and to be the kind of mind that these ideas can come to and to be the kind of mind that this abundance can come to. See, it's time for us to turn our mind into fertile soil. And that these lessons are helping us do just that.
But that goes along, JJ. You developed the habit of persistence because you could have said, oh my gosh, I'm in all of this debt, when everything hit the fan. You could have just turned over and said, you know what, I'm going to, let the government take care of me. I done lost everything. There's no way that I can get out of $847,000 of debt before I retire. We get a paycheck, but when you have that much debt, your paycheck is not putting a dent. And I'm gonna say it because I know
good paycheck. I had a real good paycheck.
I know you did, but that debt keeps piling, and so does interest and all kind of other stuff. So it's this cycle that happens. But you didn't. You were persistent. You said, "This is what my goal is, and I'm gonna do whatever it takes." And I'm sure that in correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that being a lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, sleeping in your car, taking your son to get all the freebies that you can get because you knew that there was a sacrifice that had to be made in order to meet this goal to get you out of debt so that you guys could from that point on live a much better and abundant life. You can't live an abundant life with a whole bunch of debt. I mean, it's impossible.
No. People talk about leveraging debt, but as a financial planner, I'm gonna tell y'all right now, I know of people who've leveraged debt successfully, and I'm never gonna say that the numbers don't work. But money is not a numbers. If you've gotten anything from this Think and Grow Rich, this isn't about numbers. This isn't about calculate spreadsheets and grow rich. This is about who we are and who we are deep inside. And that's really at the crux of our money. And yes, there were a lot of embarrassing times, especially when I was one of the director level people, and we had all of these functions that I was supposed to pay for. Well, guess what? I ain't paying for something when I don't have the money. And it took me a number of years to get to where I had the money to be able to work those things into the budget. There were a lot of years where I didn't send out Christmas gifts. I didn't even send out Christmas cards one year. And a lot of the things that, when you get in that situation, you find out that a lot of the things that you're doing are really superfluous to your goals. They have nothing to do with your goals. They are just there. They are behaviors that you're executing. They are things that you're spending money on. They are people that you're trying to impress. And at the end of the day, when that dust settles, ain't none of those people paying your bills and ain't none of those people moving you forward. But when you get this mindset that we're talking about, you begin to attract the people that are actually going to help you move forward. And you'll know when you get those kind of folks, because when you don't have the money, they don't try to browbeat you and guilt trip you and oh, if you just had a little faith you would step out on faith. No, they work with you and they find ways to help you elevate. Now they may not come out of their pocket and give you no money, but they're gonna open doors for you when you have the right energy. And I really hope that you get this today, because it's going to change everything in your life. I have so many people come to me as a financial planner and they say, well, JJ, I can't do this and I can't do that. I'm like, well, did you listen to the lesson I sent you? Well, I don't have time for that. I don't have time for, but did you listen to no, I need an expert to help me. If you would listen to the lesson I sent you, it'll help you attract that expert into your life. Oh my goodness. I hope
That's
you get this.
good.
Hope you get this.
That's good. And I'll just say too, I was at a point where I never had a lot of debt. Not a whole lot, because I was afraid of money. I said that. And I'm not saying that as a, but I was afraid of money. I didn't come from money. I saw how money was misused and handled. So I felt like if I had money, I didn't want to put myself in that situation. And then I was like, where I would just blow it on something. And then I was like afraid not to have money too. So I just was like, if I can't pay for it in cash, I'm not going to have it. I had a little bit of a savings account, but through 3 divorces and, marriages and divorces, I lost. I had to rebuild all over a few times. And so, with that being said, I connected with somebody who was money conscious. And it was my daughter's father. And he said, we can't be together if you have any kind of debt. So let me take you over to this financial planner and let me, introduce you to some things that will sustain you. And this is even before I even had kids or anything. Well, I had my oldest daughter, and let me bring you around and you're going to sit through this thing and you're going to do these things. And I'm like, who does that? And, but it was like the best thing that happened in my life. And then there was a point where I had, an inflow, but I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. And I was spending money a little more freely than normal. And I went to a financial planner and said, hey, she says, let me see what you're spending your money on. And so she goes, oh no, can't you make it? Why do you have to go to Starbucks and get oatmeal every morning? I'm like, it's only $2, $2.15. She was like, yeah, but you can buy a whole packet for $2.15. She was like, when you spend $2.15 a day, and in true story, JJ, at 2 different Starbucks, they were like, why do you come here every day? You get a coffee and an oatmeal. One of the girls said, this is the last one. She said, if you don't take your butt over to Walmart and get you a big thing of oatmeal and get you some of them little raisins and nuts and stuff to go in there, she said, and stop coming through this. And I was like, wait a minute, you're the barista, the cashier at Starbucks, and you're sending me telling me that I'm being, I was like, okay, God, I got it, But when I did that, and she was like, okay, let me see your log. And when I started seeing where my money was going, and I started doing the things that she said, I was a little staff sergeant, I think, at the time or something. I was overseas, but I ended up saving JJ $15,000 in 3 months. 3 months. Those nickel and dime things that I didn't know, that I wasn't aware of, that I was going to get that coffee, going to get that oatmeal, going to get these little things here and there for lunch. $15,000 in 3 months. And I was like, oh my gosh. She goes, you got all kind of, do you have to drive as much? Why do you just go driving for 12 hours? And I was like, because it's my peace of mind. She was like, can you drive for 6 or carpool? I guess I could. And that made a huge difference in my gas bill. And so, like you were saying, are you doing the work that it takes to get to your goal? I had a goal. I couldn't see how to get there. But when she gave me the principles and I actually put them in place, and then all my friends were like, how did you do that? So I was like, and then I began to be able to show them the same principles that I was using. And there's several people, and they were like, man, when you taught us about finances, I haven't had any debt. I have this, my credit score is up. I have this much money in my savings account. I appreciate you for pushing me to go and do X, Y, and Z. But it was in the application, and it was in the consistent application, the habit that was formed in looking at what I'm spending, where it's going, and then creating again, because you keep going, you be like, oh man, I ain't got nothing in my account no more. And then you start having that lack mentality, that poverty, consciousness again, instead of that money consciousness. No, these are things that I'm doing. And then I just started attracting more. And I was like, I got one paycheck, but how does it keep multiplying? How does it keep multiplying? And
Oh,
it
I
just
know.
did.
I know.
Yeah. So, but anyway, it's in those persistent actions, the
The
habits that
persistent,
we
consistent
create.
application. That's what
Yes.
David Meltzer says all the time. The consistent, persistent application of, I forget the exact quote. I always remember persistent, consistent. I'm going to be persistent and consistent. And, but it's basically the application of his goals towards his dreams. But I'm just like, I understand that for sure, because, if you look at on paper, if you look at the debt that I had, and if you look at the money I made, and if you look at the real estate money I made, and you look at the business money I made, and all them side hustles, them 17 different businesses I tried before I found one that stuck, right? Well, opposed to the one that I threw away, that I sold, right? Like that one was a good business. I shouldn't have sold it. But if you look at all that and you add all that up, it does not add up. It does not add up. Well, somehow it adds up. And so one of the things that I want to look at before we go is I want to look at these lists of the symptoms of the lack of persistence. And before I do that, Camille, if you'll indulge me just for a second, I want to share the screen and I want to show people some of what they are missing when they're not in the paid version of this class. So we're giving these free snippets once a week. We got one more week left, but there's so many more lessons that are in the portal. And one of the other things that are in the portal is that you'll see we've got worksheets, and we've got worksheets to help you really get these concepts down pat. You can go back and listen through it and really understand the quotes and understand and apply. Listening to us is great. Hey, listening to us is great. I'm a little bit vain like that. I think you can listen to us all day and you will move forward in your life. Okay. But listening to, oops, let me put this back on there. Applying it by actually writing with your hands and really going through it, that's going to make an even bigger one. But what I want to show you, this is one of the guide sheets, and each lesson has one of these guide sheets. I want you to look at this. I'm going to scroll through it real quick because I'm not going to give it all away. I want you to buy the class, right? But these are the different things, and over, you'll see the same concepts that me and Camille have really that we have really covered today: cooperation, habit, all these different things that feed into us not being persistent. The lack of persistence is a habit. So also is the ability to be persistent. And we've also got the worksheet of the things that you might see in your life that would show you why you're not getting where you need to go. We can't possibly cover all of this in just the time that we have. So I want to encourage you to get into that, get those bonus lessons, get the worksheets, and really sit down and apply this to yourself so that you can move forward. And every time, they say that when you teach, one of the best products of your class is you. Every time I teach this, every time I work with somebody like Camille on it, I learn more and I elevate myself, right? The more you go through it, the more you're going to elevate. And that's why we have in the portal, for those of you who are in there, in the portal, let me put it back. In the portal, we have the persistence challenge. Now, I love this quote from Paul Martinelli. Discipline is the ability to give yourself command and follow it. Okay. So this persistence challenge is what Camille was talking about for those 2 weeks. All right. You take these 2 weeks, you read it, you read the chapter on persistence, which is also in the portal. The whole book is in the portal at no charge. Once you buy into the class, you read the chapter on persistence every single day for 14 days in a row. You write down your insights. And when you actually, no kidding, do this thing, you are going to experience some changes. Even if you are an accomplished, successful person, every time I do this, I experience some changes. And I'm not even going to just motivate you with the personal growth, because we've been dangling that ahead of you all class. And for some of you, you're still hesitant to move forward in the direction of your dream. I'm going to dangle some cold hard cash. Who wants to make a little extra money today? Who wants to get back a little bit of their purchase price of their class? If you complete this challenge, And by complete this challenge, I mean every day for 14 days, reading the chapter, not listening to it on audiobook, not reading it 14 times in one day, not reading it 13 times and oops, I forgot today, so I'm gonna make up for it tomorrow. No, you forget for it. You forget it. You got to start over on day one. And I have gotten to 13 and had to start over on day one. Ooh, I was mad. Ooh, I was so mad. Um, okay, so the first time that I took this challenge, I actually twice in a row got to day 13 and had to start over on one because I got distracted by life. I was like, oh, I'm home free. And you know what I discovered about myself is I tend to do that. I do well. I open the doors, make things happen, and then I coast. And while I'm coasting and losing my attention, then everything fizzles. And so you're gonna get some insights about yourself. If you complete this, I'm going to refund you 25% of the purchase price of your course. So I want you to get in that portal, download that persistence worksheet. There's more instructions on the page following it that I didn't show you all so that you can remember what we're talking about. I want you to download that worksheet and I want you to be persistent and consistent in the attainment of your goals. I want you to work this challenge and I'm incentivizing you. Why am I incentivizing you? Because I know it will change your life and move you forward. And when you move forward, I know that you're going to keep coming back to more of my classes.
Yes, you're gonna get some change in your life and a little money in your pocket that you can reinvest in yourself.
Look, I'm not even trying to be funny. I get so frustrated with all these people. Oh, I just want to do good. I just want to do so much good. And I just want you to, yeah, I want to do good and I want you to be happy. But you know what? I got an ulterior motive. I know this stuff works. And I need you to see it for your life. That's why I'm incentivizing you to do it, because I need you to see that this stuff works so that you will continue this education and that you will not let go of your dream.
And it's so good, really. This is a chapter I do every, like I said, I did it for the 14 days and then I continue to do it. And he even says, it gets to the point where you read it so much that it becomes a part of your daily habit. And then you look forward to reading it and you enjoy reading it, which I absolutely do, because no matter how many times I read this, there's something else that I pull in out of it. And even if it's something that I've previously underlined in that day or because of an experience that I've had, I have a different perception of that word, perspective that comes out of that I needed in that moment. So it is a chapter that is worth reading over and over again. There were so many things. And JJ, if I can, before we do that one thing, I really have to, this one, I know we're coming up to the top of the hour, but there is on line 281 through 284, I believe.
Go
There's a
for it.
line
The
in
floor is
here.
yours. Go for it.
Okay. It says, well, later in life, after having analyzed thousands of people, I discovered that the most ideas are stillborn and need the breath of life injected into them through definite plans of immediate action. The time to nurse an idea is at the time of its birth. Every minute it lives gives it a better chance of surviving. And I put on here guilty. Guilty. It's like I really lost my zeal when I was waiting on others or waiting on things. That excitement for that idea that I had would wait. The longer that it took after the idea was birthed in me to give it life, to bring it to fruition, to start working on that thing, the less likely it was to live. And so these ideas, they come and then they just die. Like he said, they're stillborn because they need the breath of life, which is our action, attached to them to make them come to life so that we can see it manifest in our lives. And a lot of people are like, oh, this is not the right time. It's not the best time is now. When you have that idea, now I'm not saying go in and invest $500,000, but if you have that idea, start working on the plan. We talk about the definite plan of action all the time. Once you have a plan, it gives you something to work for. I'm not confused about what my first step is. And that's one of the hardest things to do, is to start, because people are, what's the perfect first step? I don't know, the one that you take. That's the perfect first step.
And I think taking that first step also helps you not fall into that trap of I've tried to run a business for 3 months and no customers. because
Exactly.
you can take an easy first step just to poll your audience and see if your idea resonates, without giving too much away now, because we talked about that last time. Giving away the farm. But I had an idea for an infographic one time, and I posted it on Facebook, and it was really, I thought it was one of the better ones I've ever done, because I tend to be too wordy. Y'all probably got that from me talking in the classes, right? I tend to be a little too wordy, and I got all these likes, and I got all these, wow, great job, and oh, this is fantastic, and this is. Let me tell you what I didn't get. I did not get any shares. So you know what I realized about that? All these people were trying to help me feel better about myself, but that infographic was not hitting the mail. It was not hitting the head. It was not hitting the net. It was not getting the job done. It was not getting the job done because ain't nobody was sharing it. And so, when something's real juicy and real good, everybody shares it. Ooh, they tag their friends in it. So you need to see this. And so do I get upset that, oh, well, I tried that? No, I took the feedback, I tweaked it, and I started again on something else. Same idea, because people like the idea enough to comment on it, but easier to read and a better graphic. And so, man, I love this. You really brought out how a lot of times when these ideas come to us and we just, oh, never mind. Oh, I'm busy. Oh, I'll get to that tomorrow. Tell me what you think about that. Tell me what you think about that. I know you got something to say about that.
Tomorrow, what they say, look on the calendar and see when tomorrow comes. Never. It's not on there. Look at your watch, and see when it's later. It's not there. Because if you keep saying later, tomorrow, or whatever, you'll find 50 excuses. 50 other things will come in and we'll say, oh, life happened. I got so busy, because you didn't prioritize that thing. You didn't say this was important enough for me to step out and say, you know what? And there's times that I've had to do that. And I'm like, look, I have to reschedule or shuffle my schedule, because this is what's burning and what's pressing for me at the time. And I was reading something else, or I read all the time, y'all. So sometimes things get all mushy and stuff. But anyway, where you have that thing that gets in the way, the card game, or, I got to stand in bowling night with my boys, or we got to go hang out because we normally do this. And then you put the very thing that's going to get you where you want to go, or is that entrance to your dream, to your goals, on the shelf, because you have these commitments. Your priorities are skewed. You know what I mean? Your priorities later will never come if you don't make it a priority, and you don't schedule it, and you don't work towards it. It's so easy. And like I said, I put on that thing. I am guilty that I've had these ideas and I've put them on the shelf, and they never came to fruition. And then you see that thing that you had an idea about, somebody else had that same idea too. They acted on it. You can't get mad because you sat on it. You can't get mad because now they're out there grinding and everything like that. Yeah, you may have said something about it 2 years ago, but 2 years passed and you didn't do a thing with it. Are you really, who you gonna be mad at, them or you? you know so tomorrow won't come if you don't make it a priority. Well, tomorrow will always come.
It'll come.
Tomorrow will come, but it won't be to get you any closer to your dream if you're not active.
That's right. It won't. You can't get back. You can't say I'm only going to give 70% today, and then I'm going to give that extra 30% tomorrow. You can only give 100% of every day. And if you don't give 100% today, you can't add. You can't add. 100% is all. People say, "Oh, I'm going to give 110% effort." You're not going to be able to give no 110% effort. There's no such thing. Now, I like that. Now, look, I'm a high energy, high octane kind of person. I like the energy behind. I'm going to give 110%. I like that. I like that. My soul says, yes, we're going to do this thing. But in reality, mathematical reality, if I leave 10% on the table today, I cannot get it back tomorrow. I must do everything within my power today to move forward and accomplish these desires, these goals, these giftings, and these callings that have been placed upon my life. All right, as we wrap up, I'm going to open the floor for Camille one more time, because I know that I'm just like keep riffing off of everything she says, and I'm just like, wow, girl, that's so good. Let me tell you about this. So I'm gonna let her end it. I'm gonna close it out. I'm gonna bring up the link for people that want to participate in the persistence challenge, so that you can get out there and buy the class. And Camille, if you'll close us out, I would greatly appreciate it.
Sure. So today was about the persistence, and I'm just going to read this one last little bit. It says, riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans backed by definite desires through constant persistence. So if there's something that you want, you want to create wealth in your life, you have to be persistent. And it has to be coupled with that desire, that has to be coupled with that plan of action to get you towards your goal and towards your dreams and where you want to go. So persistence is the word of the week.
All right. Thank you so much, Camille. For everybody tonight, I want to thank you for watching, or if you're listening to it after the fact, I want to thank you for being with us. We understand that your time is your most valuable commodity, and we are honored that you choose to spend it with us today. We hope that these lessons have been moving the needle forward in your life, and we hope that you will continue to join with us as we execute the persistence challenge. For those of us, Camille already completed it for this lesson, but I did not complete it yet this season. So we in this together, y'all. You can join us at jjclink.com/tagr to get the recordings, the extra guide sheets, the lesson drops, all of the extra goodies that you are not getting, including we're up to now 10 bonus lessons that you haven't even heard yet because they've all been locked behind the vault of the portal. Let's see what else I want to say. Well, next week is our last next week is our last lesson. You want to be here, same bat time, same bat channels, so that you can get all this juicy goodness. Again, on behalf of myself and Camille, I want to wish you all a good night. Y'all take care and be blessed.